Are we already on?
We were. Now we're
Is this
live.
it?
Yeah,
We're
we're live.
live. All right.
Mhm.
I didn't get to see the intro like I thought we would. Um, all right. Hey everybody. So today, unfortunately, you're saddled with a different host. I'm Hassan. I'm filling in for Eyal. I think he's like out receiving like an Oscar for his work on this show. So tune in next week to have him explain all of that. I've also got Mark here with me to save me. How you doing, Mark?
Hi, I'm doing good. How are you, man?
Doing good. Doing good. You're not too disappointed. It's me, right?
No, I think the vibes are still good. I mean, it just started, so you have a lot of room for disappointment still, but
I know.
we'll
Plenty
keep
of
we'll keep
time.
it we'll keep it going.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll get it done. So we've got a pretty good show for everybody today. We're going to start off things with the changelog, and then we'll have Chris come on and do some live coding. So I don't think we need to waste too much time. Why don't we get
Yeah,
right into the changelog?
let's do it. So here
Awesome.
it is. I like I'm excited for this new. I We'll see if when it all comes back, we'll keep this start with changelog. The intro goes into the little presentation. I'm already liking it. I'm already into it.
I'm sold. If it doesn't stay this way, I'm no longer going to watch the show.
So this last 2 weeks, not a huge amount of activity. I don't know what to chalk it up to. I know there's been some holidays for like half our team, lumped in there. A lot of, like I mentioned before, we were focusing more on stability rather than like features necessarily. So, even for the changes that we do have, a lot more of them were more bug fixes um, than anything else. But yeah, just a little quieter, but still definitely some things to highlight. Some fun stuff.
Um, Summer break, right? Everybody's kids are at school. Everybody's enjoying life and not trying to spend their time on a
Oh yeah, that's what's
computer.
happening. I don't know. I don't have a I don't have a good linkage to who else
So,
is on break. So that's a good call out. Yeah. I thought everyone just hated us. I don't
well, that could be it.
know.
We'll see you next time.
So first up, as usual, we have Chris. So there's kind of an underlying feature in the simulator that I forget how long ago it was up is implemented, but the simulator can now support like instead of just like if the console when you're running it with through Wing it uses the simulator under the hood, and when you make changes to your files, it'll reload all the all the resources you had defined, and add or remove or change whatever you have defined in there to reflect the updates. Um, and previously that was always a full reload. It always just like deleted everything and started it back up, which for some things is like prohibitively slow to do.
Yeah.
Um, and there's now a way for resources to go through like an update or like check if you need to update type of cycle, which probably you've seen in most other like provisioning systems. Like you do a Terraform plan, and you can see like what gets and you look at like all the crud is it being created, updated, deleted type of model. The Cinder now kind of has that feature in place, and most of the resources supported that except Cloud Function, which would just still just be restart every time.
Mm.
But now it will support being able to like detect like, hey, what has it changed? Has like the contents of the function changed? And do we need to update? So
Awesome.
I'll note that it does require. So right now that whole feature I'm talking about, where it's able to detect updates and update in place without restarting everything, is behind a feature flag that you can enable with an environment variable. But that I believe there's only one PR left before we might enable that um, one console related change. So this is coming soon to a wider audience, but this function feature was implemented in the last 2 weeks.
Super cool. I really love like how things are progressing with the simulator and how like it just feels like it's getting way more robust. Um, I'm also a big fan of Chris, obviously, and like his changes are always ones that like pretty pretty big and take some decent explanation to go through because they're
Hmm.
so important.
Yeah, I mean, I believe it was his change that also added the in place updates. Period. Like the whole underlying
Yeah,
feature was also his. I just can't remember when that was, but yeah,
yeah. I got to
I
brag
do
about him
think.
because we're bringing him on in a little bit. So
I mean, he's also first in basically every changelog. So hopefully, people that watch will recognize him by now if they haven't.
oh yeah. I mean, he's not so pixelated in real life, but
That's true.
yeah, they'll get it.
So thank you, Chris. We'll move on to our host, who added the a new template for Wing New, which lets you create like templated projects. Um, there's now one for Wing. You can do Wing New Slack, and you'll get a Slackbot application, which uses a Wing library that he created as well for facilitating interactions with Slack. Um, so you can see here an example of like how easy this is to use, where you can create the new app with the cloud secret. This will have the Slack bots. I forget what the token is, if it's like not an API token, but some sort of authentication
Yeah, either your
token.
bot or user token, one of the
There you
two.
go. And then you can register like, hey, on event at mention, which is like you do at and then whatever the name of the bot is, and you can write an inflate function to do stuff. Which this one creates a message and with markdown and sends it, which is really cool on its own as an API. But even better, being able to run the simulator, run Wing It, and you can expose this with you can expose a wing a tunnel,
Tunnel. Yeah.
and Slack will be able to communicate with this. So you can have a whole simulated experience without having to set up any ngrok and deal with like having to test that locally in that way, or setting up a bunch of empty shims, or what's it called? What's the term for like where you're pretending mocks? That's what I was
Ah,
looking for. Instead of dealing with mocks, and you can actually have a real end-to-end testing experience with this, and also you can use this to deploy to AWS. So super duper cool. If
yeah. Yeah. It definitely a really fun experience to build this thing out in Wing. I think, and I won't belabor it. I think I've talked about like the Slack library probably 50 times. But it's really powerful, like what we're able to do like locally and just like make this experience easier. I think some of the things that I still want to add to this are like some of the APIs that you need to implement for OAuth to do like mass distribution of a Slack bot, but we can do that as well, just like we're doing the redirect URLs pretty easily. So, and then obviously this is the Wing template, actually the Wing new command, which shout out to Chris again, added makes it super easy for us to like create these easy quick start templates so that people can like kind of get familiar with some of the cool stuff we're building.
mhm. Yeah, I don't know if I don't usually talk about wing libs on the changelog, and I don't remember, so I don't remember if this has been talked about, but definitely shout out to that one. Shout out to that wing lib. I think it's your wing lib. Shout out to that, and another reminder that I should be covering them here because they're always super cool.
Yeah, definitely. It would be cool to see some of those in here.
For sure.
All right.
All right, so thank you to you
Oh, you're so
for
welcome.
this one. And next up, we have Suf, a change from Suf, who was, I would say, the MVP of this last 2 weeks. I think she has the most changes, um,
Carrying us on
and
our back.
lots of really good ones. Yeah, no, for that. Even right now, she has multiple PRs that I really need to review. Sorry, Suf. Right
I'm with
after
you.
this, I'm going right to it. So she's definitely been putting in a lot of great work to make improvements. So this one, I feel like this is probably one of the
Oh
worst
yeah,
looking things that probably happens with a lot of frequency for people.
so
Um,
bad, so bad.
this, I mean, this is trivialized looking error, but this would obviously be a lot more common. Like imagine you're calling a function that is expecting an array of some kind, and you accidentally call it with an array of a different kind. You'd get this error, which is useless. Other than knowing that at least you got the array part right. That's good. Good to know, I guess.
I mean, yeah, it's It's pretty terrible. I was trying to find some redeeming quality to this era, but yeah,
Well, the redeeming quality is that it didn't silently succeed,
that's good.
or
It also
it
doesn't
didn't
like personally
succeed.
insult you, right? Like
Yeah.
we're not trashing the user.
But so now she fixed the error message, so it actually includes the full type information necessary to make it actually usable.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I believe this works for, so this, I showed it right here. It works for any collection type. I I don't think it works for JSON. I think well, there's a similar problem with JSON types.
Yeah,
Um,
I was going to ask.
but it's definitely a more complicated issue. There's still a separate issue open for it. But this one definitely covers, and covers every other um, generic type of collection type we have.
Great stuff. Thank you, so love this.
Thank you. And I got to change from a lot.
Oh yeah,
So this, I realized I thought I added a screenshot here. Okay, well, anyway, so in the console, there are lines between resources that have some sort of connection. Usually, this is like if you have a cloud function that calls I use another function here, but let's say you have a cloud function that calls like put on a bucket. Um, you now have that connection between the function and the bucket because it's invoking a method on it. So that it's almost like a call flow graph,
hmm
although it's never always been it's never only been that. It's just that happens to be the most prolific type of relationship that I think we have. But one something that was missing was that if you let's say you have an API and you in your another function you reference this API's URL, uh, this is still a live like relationship between these two things.
right,
Um, because this URL is like this isn't just random data. This is something that after deployment gets set. It's like a tokenized value. It's not just like a plain string. Um, so this kind of does imply that yeah, this cloud function does have a dependency for sure on this API being deployed. And I mean, even more so, it has like an actual explicit relationship defined. And this previously didn't have an arrow, so they always looked disconnected, even though there was a connection. So now it's there.
it's awesome. I don't think I've seen it, so I don't mean to harp on your lack of screenshot. Is there like a special indicator with this error, or is it just like a normal
Uh,
connection one?
I believe there was discussion in the PR about how like should this like it should probably have us like the different relationships should probably be shown differently. But
Right.
it hasn't been tackled yet, as far as I know. It's just like, but it's definitely I think in the cards. I'll say
Yeah.
that like a call relationship is different than just like a depends on
Exactly.
a
Yeah.
relationship. But yeah, no, right now it's just a plain old arrow.
It works.
Uh,
I'm sure with as fast as our console like grows and gets nicer and nicer by like the hour, uh, we'll see it.
Speaking of that, you may not be surprised to know that the rest of the changes on this list are console related.
That's wonderful. That's the good
uh,
stuff.
so thank you to Elad for that, and for the next console change. Oh, it's not that; it's this. So when you have a resource that's like a child of another resource and it's hidden, which is way more common than you might think. It's like as a way of like abstracting some of the inner details. You don't actually care about some of those
Mhm.
children. So they'll be if they're hidden, but then you have an outside resource depending on that hidden child. Suddenly, A and like so in my example here, A and B would be completely unrelated, even though like I mean it does A is not unrelated to everything. It's just you can't happen to see the thing that it is related to. So like imagine there were like a C child inside of this B.
Yeah.
Um, Now with this change, and the relationship will be shown to be between the outside resource and the parent of that
Right.
hidden resource. You can see here, if I have A, B, and C is in B, but I hid C,
And then
that's
we give
just
A
laid
that
out.
connection. Yeah, to
And then you
C.
can I manually added the connection, which just to keep the example short, that's but I wanted to show what I did, even though this is probably not a common way you would actually write the code. But under the
Right.
hood, this is really what's happening to like, as I mentioned, like in the other example of the when you reference like API.url, we're adding a connection.
Right.
So now this will be shown and not hidden.
It's good stuff. Really is. I love the use of Nodo here. Um, I'm sure not a lot of people are using that right now, besides like SDK authors, but it's good.
Yeah, I think it's you got to be in the know.
You got to be in the know,
You get to be
and
in the
this is
know
where
and
you
not
come.
accidentally use the because some things will have dot node. You can access a dot node property of objects, but you actually don't want to do that. The LSP now hides them. The language server now.
Oh, does it?
Yeah, it should. If it doesn't, let me know. But the suggested use here is use node of to get like an actually more proper node object that has more useful features such as hidden and add connection.
Awesome. And like you said, you got to be in the know. And if you want to be in the know, this is where you got to come to the Wingly.
Mhm. I'll say that in I think I brought up this issue a while ago because I noticed that in realistic scenarios this happens all the time,
Hmm.
and it caused like it made the graph like the map view look, I don't know, I lost a lot of the actual relationship, like I lost most of them actually. So it's this is the I don't know if it seems like it's kind of like, oh, this is like it's kind of neat. This was a game changer in a particular app I was working on, in terms of
Oh,
making
really?
that useful for visualization. Yeah. Um, so hope
It's
it's
awesome.
helpful to everyone else. And thank you, Christian, on the console team for working on that.
Thank you, Christian. Christian and
Uh,
Paul, next time our host is gone, this is going to Spain. So you're ready.
for sure. Speaking of Paul, next up we have a change for him. This one's a pretty huge one. That's why this is my
Oh,
finisher.
yes. I love this one.
So console nodes are now collapsible and expandable. I didn't really have anything else to say about it here, other like in the slide, other than I mean you can see it. A nuance that I think was great that was I forget if it was included in the PR that added that or if it was later, but it was if there's only one node, it'll start expanded. If you only have one node, but otherwise, if you have like many nodes, it'll actually they all start collapsed, which is like probably step one of like many heuristics we can add to this to make this like super nice and usable. I've already seen some discussions on other avenues for this, but even right now, I think for non toy level applications, being able to hide certain stuff is killer.
Yeah, I think especially like as Wing has grown and as we keep like adding new things and enabling users to like build more, potentially more complicated systems, this kind of stuff is like you got to have it, and this is great.
Mhm. And that's it.
That's
The change
it.
logs. Thank you to Paul for that change that I took away too quickly.
Thanks, Paul. That's awesome. Good stuff. Mark, thanks so much for walking us through the changelog as always. I think it's like fan favorite. Everybody loves the changelog. So I wouldn't be surprised if we don't like lose all of our users or watchers after you. I think that's why we normally keep you for the end of the show.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, sorry about that. Everyone, I'm watching. Stay logged in. Stay locked in right now. You can't leave.
Exactly. Exactly. That's why we pulled out Chris so that we can have better chances of retention. Cool.
Sure.
Awesome, man. Well, it's great to talk to you. Awesome to see you. Till next time.
Bye.
Bye bye. All right. Wonderful. So rather than listen to me ramble, I think without further ado, let's go on and bring Chris.
Hey there. Hey, Hasan.
Hey, Chris, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Yeah. It was really, really cool changelog. Yeah, I really love some of the quality of life improvements and the new Slack library and everything.
Yeah, it's good stuff. It was Mark said it was shorter, but it was still, I think, just as good as normal. How's Boston's weather?
It's like Boston always is. It's actually getting pretty hot today. It's fortunately on the cloudy side, but yeah, trying to get out as often as I can. There's tons of like these blue bikes you can just kind of like, because I don't even have my own bike, but I can bike anywhere. Yeah, it's really great.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So today, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're going to be walking us through how just using your household supplies you can build a qubit, right? Is that what we're doing?
I need to double check my notes. Actually, we have a different idea.
Okay.
Last minute change, if that's okay.
We'll work with it. It's I'm a little disappointed, but I'll get over it.
Yeah. So I want to show off, basically do like a little hacking session where we kind of show how you can use these other, like basically cloud services, with Wing. Because one of the big ideas with Wing is that, it's not just a tool chain, for AWS or for Azure. And it's not even just a tool chain for the public clouds. It's really supposed to give you access to the power of all cloud resources that you have available. Um, and there's a huge ecosystem on Terraform. Um,
Yeah.
and Memento is just one of these cloud services I recently heard about.
Yeah. That's awesome. So we're going to be using Momento then today. And what are we going to be using it for?
So Memento, like I heard about them at like AWS reInvent. And by the way, this like definitely it's actually not sponsored by them. It's just like I
Yeah.
know they're working on a lot of cool stuff,
We're
including they
gonna
have this like yeah
Yeah, we're gonna have you prove it. Like, are you wearing any Memento shirt right now or memorabilia?
yeah. There's someone right next to me, with cards I'm reading, but
That's good. That's good. Sponsor.
um, but yeah, they provide a caching service, as well as actually a few other services like serverless topics and I believe some like data storage. I think they had like a vector database perhaps at one point. Um, but yeah, like there's all of these serverless kind of services. So like if you want to have a database and you don't want to manage the provisioning and the operations yourself, um, like these serverless services kind of hide away that responsibility for you, which is really nice. Um, but caching is interesting because
Yeah,
I guess there's what are the big ones today? There's Redis, I guess.
exactly.
Um,
Yeah. RabbitMQ. There's quite a few, but this Memento's take on this is like a little unique, right? Because it's trying to give like this serverless cache, right? Which I think also we've seen that a little bit in AWS with like serverless Elasticache. But
Exactly.
let's
But the main difference with them, like at least from what I've read on their docs, is that like Memento, they'll actually let you like scale to zero basically. So
which is
if you're
huge.
using AWS, like you have to pay at least $90 a month for the minimum to use their serverless caching. But Memento, you can scale down to zero, and that's like arguably one of the important tenets of serverless. Just pay for what you use, right?
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, it makes sense. Um, so I guess our goal then today, we're going to be doing some live coding, right? Um,
Yeah.
for a new winglib.
Yeah, and so we're gonna try creating a new Wing library. Yeah, we call these Wing libs. Um, you've actually written a few, right? Um,
Something like that. Yeah. But for those who haven't, you want to give us a quick intro to the winglib repository?
yeah, so you can check it out here at winglang/winglibs. And this is basically a collection of libraries. Um, Basically, we're keeping them in a monorepo, like in a single place, so anyone can kind of contribute to them. And also because our programming language, it's still very nascent. We're making breaking changes every now and then, to improve the syntax before it really stabilizes. And so whenever those changes are made, we'll actually like automatically apply them to the library for you. And we'll also handle like publishing. So whenever you can just make a pull request to your library, and we'll bump it and like basically publish the new version for you, which is really handy.
Yeah, and there's the added benefit of like it's kind of like the icing on top. If you put your library in the wing libs, you can just import them by name, right?
Yeah, exactly. I don't know if we show it here, but yeah, like if we look at yeah, we have like a GitHub Wing library, and it's available through this npm package, but you can actually just write bring GitHub, which is really really ergonomic and kind of concise.
Yeah, definitely.
So ready to get into it?
I'm ready, man. I'm sure everyone's ready to see the code. This is going to be fun.
Yeah, so I want to show like just kind of walk people through the contributing process a little bit. So I have the repo checked out here. And the first step to creating any Wing library is to run this mklib script. And we explain some of this more in the README. But yeah, you can
Yeah,
just
because
run
this
this.
does quite a bit, right?
Exactly. It's kind of just scaffolding a bunch of this kind of boilerplate, like your library will get its own README, its own, I think some,
Some
what do we
GitHub
have? Yep.
actions.
Yeah, GitHub actions for like testing it automatically. Yeah, so when if it starts breaking, we'll try to catch that automatically.
Yeah, fun fact, I didn't realize we had this script the first time I wrote a Winglib. And like I got through the whole process. I was almost done like hacking together my own GitHub workflow before I realized, oh my God, I didn't need to do any of this.
Oh man. Yeah, maybe we need to add like a little note at the top of them that says like, oh, this file is generated. I think we might be missing that.
Yeah. I
But
could also just try reading. I don't think that's a skill I'm still working on.
likewise. So yeah, you can see it kind of created this directory for Momento. We can see it just kind of scaffolded some boilerplate code that we can kind of mess around with. There's a README. And yeah, maybe I'll like copy and paste like just like a little sketch of what the usage we want, what we're gonna try to build. So
Yeah.
Momento, yeah, they provide a bunch of these resources, cache and topic and so on. We're just gonna focus on the cache. And so yeah, the idea is you'll be able to bring the library in, create a cache. This is in pre-flight, so it's gonna basically create a Terraform resource for you. And then you can use this API in flight. And so it's just going to have a very simple like get and set API.
Awesome. Yeah, simple enough. Serverless. I can see everybody. I can see a great use case for this. Looks like we have a question here. Have you thought of using Progen for scaffolding?
Yeah, it's a really great idea.
Yeah, I think definitely we had a discussion around this when Wingless was first getting rolled out. And so I think at the moment it was one of those things where like, yes, we should be using, or probably will have some sort of Progen support. But as to quote the great Mark, contributions welcome.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff in Progen. I think it could be the right tool. But we also want to try out like basically doing this scripting. We're kind of using Wing to write these files. So maybe we can either use Progen through Wing or make kind of a Progen lookalike in Wing. I think there's a lot of options here.
Yeah, definitely.
And yeah, I'll note like how are we? Yeah, maybe we'll start getting into the implementation, like to sketch this out. Like, how are the resources going to be actually deployed? Well, we're going to be using Terraform, as you might imagine. It's one of the more common platforms. And yeah, fortunately, well, Momento, they haven't yet published their own provider, but there is one written kind of by the community. Well, the community being like,
Yeah. Let's look at that community real quick. There we go. That's about right.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like a self plug, but like, I mean, I have nothing to gain from this. It was just like a fun little experiment to see how Terraform providers work, um, and yeah, there's just like a single resource. It's just a cache. It's very bare bones, but it'll show how you can basically interop with any Terraform resource using Wing, which is really powerful, I think.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. And having like just about with any of these resources that we're trying to create in Wing, having an existing Terraform provider, which we do thanks to the community, uh, makes it a lot easier, right?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, so that's our goal. So yeah, let's get into this. I'm gonna like maybe just rename some of these files just to like focus on the. This will just be for the cache resource, and so um, we kind of have to decide on a little API for this. Maybe I'll kind of copy some code just to save time. And yeah, here I've created like a basic kind of a simple interface where, pre-flight resources, you kind of configure a lot of their options through the constructor. And I've specified these two options. One is for the cache name, if you want to like override it. And then also for like a default time to live for the cache entries. We don't have to get too bogged down into the details. We'll see a little more how the time to live works, but
Yeah, and I'll point out too. I know this isn't related, but our doc strings now will work for all this too, right? Like, so when someone's creating this cache prop, they'll get a nice doc string showing them like the default values that'll be provided. I don't remember how long ago we got those in, but it definitely makes authoring these libraries a lot nicer to the user.
yeah, exactly. And yeah, we just recently added this like docs string support. I think, yeah, like if you hover over this, you'll see the description we just added. We haven't set conventions yet, like for these like defaults and stuff, but basically you use // to indicate a doc string,
And supports Markdown, right? I'm going on a tangent. Sorry. But,
oh, I mean, let's try that. I'm actually curious. Oh, it does. Wow.
damn, look at that.
Yeah, you can do all kinds of wacky stuff.
Look at that technology, man.
Yeah, yeah, that's pretty cool. So yeah, for creating this cache, the other like really interesting thing about Wing is, you can basically model these resources across multiple compilation targets, or define like these cloud agnostic resources. Now, with Momento, it's kind of interesting because we're saying like, okay, this cache is just going to be a Memento cache. We could also create a general purpose cache, but it would still be nice to like have a way to model it in the simulator.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
so I think what we might start with is, yeah, we want to add some more native language support for this eventually, but the way you can kind of do this right now in Wing libraries is by defining a class for each target.
Right. And then yeah, I'll let you start going. Sorry.
Yeah, I'll show off a little bit. So like cache sim, like we just have like this very loose convention where you define a class for each target. And actually, yeah, this resource in theory it will work with any Terraform based target, so it should be able to interop with if you're deploying to AWS or Azure or GCP, as long as you're using Terraform, because Momento is also using Terraform, they should kind of play together.
Yeah, that's super cool in my opinion with this winglet. So this is what you're talking about, like our convention. Oh,
Yeah.
hey Nathan.
Hey there. I'm helping out in the chat and the studio. We had a question come in just a minute ago. Can you increase the font size, Chris, please?
Yeah, I can try increasing a little bit more. Does that look better?
It does. Yeah. All right. Thanks,
Wait.
guys.
Thanks, Nathan.
So yeah, and what we're going to do, yeah, so right now we kind of expose the target through this environment variable. We might change this, add some more dedicated API, but you basically get this string with the target name. And then we can say like, okay, if the target, we'll just say like, okay, if it starts with TF, because we have all these Terraform targets,
Yeah.
then we're going to, we're gonna like store a little instance, like a child class, a child object that stores the specific implementation. And then for
this
each of
is
the
a pretty
in-flight
standard. Sorry, but what we're doing here, this is like kind of a standard boilerplate that we do for most of our winglets right now, where we're basing out the concrete implementation off of that target environment variable, which I think we've got some discussions around giving some better tools for this, but for now, it is what it is.
Yeah, I think we have some ideas where like maybe it will like dispatch kind of automatically, like
Right.
so basically maybe this class will be auto-generated or it'll behave like that. But yeah, it'll be interesting.
Yeah, I think we have a few open discussions going on right now in this regard. A couple different syntax choices, maybe some platform mix-ins, but this inner convention gets the job done for now.
Yep. Let's see. And okay, yeah, there's a few things. Right, so I'm trying to think of what order to go through this. Yeah, we're actually going to skip the simulator for now. I don't think we'll have time to finish it today.
Sure.
But one thing we have to decide as well is like, what's the API for the cache? Yeah, I suggested basically, we'll start with get and set. That sounds pretty good, right?
I think that's a great place to start.
Yeah. So the way I'm going to enforce that each of these classes, that they're kind of conforming to the same set of in-flight methods is with an interface, right? It's our kind of our meat and potatoes of object-oriented contracts, right?
Right.
So here I'm just kind of scaffolding some stuff I wrote ahead of time. So here we're going to have a get method, and maybe in the future we can add some extra options for that.
Yeah.
And we'll say like, okay, if the value isn't there, you'll get like nil. And if you do get the value, you'll receive it as a string.
Love it.
And likewise for the cache value, like if it's for setting values, there's a key and value. And then you can optionally set the time to live like on a per entry basis as well.
Yeah. Do we want the return type here to be void, or do we want to indicate to the user?
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, we could have
going
like
off script.
No, it's a good question. I think right now the convention we have in some of the SDK is basically like, if there's a failure, by default, let's try to like raise that to the user like as an exception.
Right.
That said, if there's like in between, like something that's not a failure, but like then yeah, I could see we could return some kind of like enum maybe with like, oh, it already exists, or
yeah.
to represent those options. For now, I'll leave it as
Let's
like a
do
future
form. Yeah,
enhancement.
I'm with you.
Cool. And so based on that, we're going to assume that this inner class that's for the specific target fulfills this interface, and then that lets us kind of implement the methods on this abstract class, which is just calling the inner methods. So nothing too interesting there.
Yeah, makes sense.
Okay, so now we're getting into the Terraform AWS implementation. Okay, we need this to implement the interface.
To implement the interface. Yep.
Yeah. And yeah, maybe we'll just kind of stub these out for now. Like here, I'm just writing some comments.
Works.
And maybe a good starting point is to see, like, can we just get some Terraform output? Like, let's forget about the in-flight aspect of this new resource. Like, let's just get it compiling.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say, like, let's import this, and we're going to say, like, let cache equals new Momento cache. We said that we can kind of generate a name for you, but we can also maybe use the construct ID or something. And yeah, let's just see if this will kind of compile. So in my terminal, I'm typing win compile. I guess we'll just use AWS because that's convenient. Oh, and I need to actually go into the Momento directory. And yeah, if we look inside, well, we have some Terraform, but we don't have any resources.
Right.
So
I can see off the bat we're missing information in there about the provider that we'll need to use for Momento. So what's our next step?
So the next step is, I think we're going to use, basically we have a helper library with a bunch of really convenient Terraform utilities. It's actually one of the wing libs. We can look at the docs. You can see there's a library named TF. And you can see there's some documentation for it. One of them is this resource. So we're actually relying on under the hood, we're using CDKTF, but CDKTF, sometimes it's like a little more heavy, or like there's a lot more options than you need. So this is just like a kind of a simplified interface for simple use cases. And so let me see here. I'm gonna just copy a tiny bit of code. So I'll set the name on this this class. I think we're going to set the name. Well, yeah. Let's. I'm gonna kind of stub that out for a second.
Yeah, I guess there might be some. Okay, yeah, stubbing it out's fine.
Yeah, we'll get back to that. And I'm going to use this TF library. So I want to say bring TF. Okay, and it's saying we need to install this library. So let's install it. And now it's compiling. And so
hey, Martin, good to have you.
Yeah, welcome. We're saying there's a type for the Terraform resource, and then a set of attributes. And as we kind of saw in the docs, like there's just this one field, just the cache name, nothing complicated.
Simple. Yeah.
So yeah, maybe now we try compiling it. Let's see. Hey,
Oh, look at that.
oh, the name. Yeah, I guess we
Yeah.
didn't specify.
We did it for
So
ourselves.
the idea I had for this when I was like kind of penciling out like what was this, how it should work, and we kind of still need to like set some good standards for the ecosystem. But also one thing to keep in mind is like the naming of resources. It's very different between different cloud providers. Like for some resources on AWS, you can just
Right.
use you need a globally unique name. Other times you just need a name that's unique for your account. So the idea I had was, maybe we'll default to some name that's based on the construct ID, unless the user overrides it, right?
Right. I think that's a good assumption. But here, I guess the name doesn't so much matter for the cloud provider, because this is all just going to Momento through Terraform, right?
Yeah. So when it will matter is when you you have like multiple caches, or
Yeah.
you're creating constructs that like use a cache, and you want to make sure they're composable. Like you can create multiple of those.
So as a Wing library author, if I want to be able to use the ID to generate this unique name, how do we do it? Like, is that exposed easily?
Yeah, so we can obtain basically, we have, I'm trying to think of the best way to introduce it. But yeah, every class in Wing has like this unique ID, and it's like basically associated with a path in the tree. So there's like a tree of resources that's created from your application, and each class will have a path within that tree, starting from the root. And based on that, you kind of get like a unique address with respect to your particular application. It's not going to be globally unique, but it will be unique with respect to all of your other resources.
It'll get you 90% of the way there.
Exactly. So here we can say, I'm going to say like let node equals node of this. So this is like a built-in function. Mostly you'd use this like as a library author or for some more advanced use cases. And let me copy like a little snippet.
This node of is going to be the show stealer. I think we got to see this in the changelog too. Yeah.
Exactly. And so we're going to say, okay, if the user specified a name, like maybe they already have a cache created perhaps, or they just want to hard code it, they'll use that. Otherwise, we're going to say, let's get this like maybe a part of their part of this ID, which is like the last part, the name of just this child, plus like a little hash that's going to be unique with respect to the position in the tree. And yeah, maybe we should have like a better way to kind of like expose some of these. It's work in progress.
Right, for sure. But this makes sense.
Yeah. And so by doing this, we can just kind of like pass it around here. We know we're always going to have some names, so I'm just going to kind of use the bang operator to kind of unwrap it and say, yeah, I kind of know this is safe.
Right, assuming that no one ever tries to create this class themselves, right? It always has to go through the
so actually this class, it should really kind of be private. I made a little typo there, but
now it's safe.
Exactly. And right, so now when we compile this example where we had compiling the wrong place. Right, we have two different caches, and we'll actually see they have two different names now. Like my cache 2 with this little hash, and then my cache with the little hash.
Awesome. And what if the user doesn't specify the as ID?
Great question. Let's try it. So let's just do that. And okay, so it defaults to cache, I guess.
Cool.
Makes
And even
sense.
if they didn't do it for either one, these would still both be unique, right? Because the ending hash looks like
Let's
is
see.
different between the two.
Well, you'll still get basically an error because
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Um,
Right. I wanted to see at least one error before we were done with this demo. So.
Yeah, it would have been too smooth.
Yeah, no one would have bought it.
Cool. So yeah, so we could even try going into the output and try to run like Terraform init to try to execute this Terraform. But yeah, I think you actually alluded to this, right?
Provider, yeah.
Yeah,
so it's interesting. So is there how do I get the provider that I care about here?
So this is also like, I guess, kind of a detail of Terraform, but yeah, if we look at this, like basically we need to provide a list of all of the providers. So I guess by convention, the resource name starts with like, Momento or AWS or the name of the cloud. But there will also be some options here saying like, okay, I mean, there's none here, but you could specify the region for AWS and so on.
Right.
And we kind of want Wing to do that for you automatically, or when you instantiate this class, it makes sense like, okay, let's just automatically bring in that provider.
Yeah, I don't want to care about it when I'm writing this cache.
Yeah. So I'm just gonna kind of bring in some more code because it's a little bit monotonous, but here I've defined this like Momento provider class, and what I'm really doing is I'm creating like a singleton because even if I'm creating multiple caches, I want just one of them, like one provider to be defined.
Right.
So we have this little pattern here. I think we have it in our docs. Maybe we can even like add something in the language to help. But basically, like the first time you create this, you call this method. It's going to create a Terraform provider, and this is also from that Winglet we imported. Otherwise, it will kind of store it somewhere in the tree, and we will just reuse it next time.
Right. So on the any subsequent calls there, we're able to just find this singleton was created in the tree and return the existing provider, which makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean the caching library has to do some caching itself, right?
It wouldn't be complete.
And so yeah, how do we I think we can just call this by saying like Momento provider and then get or create within this little scope. And let's try this out. Compiling. And we see there's Momento here.
Oh boy. Can we initialize now?
Let's try it.
I'm excited. I'm ready.
Okay. Terraform apply. One thing I should note is like for Momento, basically it's like AWS where you kind of need to have some environment already set up in your CLI. I have I think I was like testing this out earlier. Let's give it some good names. What should we name these?
Let's go with Wingly Cache.
Wingly Cache.
I hit my quota for helpfulness today, so you're welcome.
Thank you. naming is one of the hardest problems in software engineering, it turns out, even when you're demoing.
I don't even know how you get better at it. Like, I feel like I've just struggled to name forever.
Okay, and we see, looks like it was successful, and let's double check that. You can go into the Momento console, refreshing, and I'll zoom in a little bit, but yeah, we can see
Oh boy,
some Wingly caches. Oops.
that's awesome. This is pretty slick UI too.
Yeah, and so I guess the last part is to get these in-flight methods working.
Yeah.
Now let's see, how are we doing on time?
We're short, but we'll go until we can. Let's see where we can get.
Let's pull a little further. We'll see.
Yeah, nobody's here. Like Eyal, when Eyal's gone, we're gonna have a fun time.
Wonderful. So yeah, to do in-flight operations, you can imagine Momento, like any cloud provider, they have some API endpoints. You could probably access them through curl or something like that. Or although in their case, they actually provide some SDKs. So there's like a JavaScript library. Let's see if we can find it. Yeah, if we go to their docs, SDKs, they support all these different languages. Pretty impressive, actually.
Yeah.
And yeah, we'll be using this Go Momento package. So yeah, let's just install that. Is that the okay.
SDK, yeah.
SDK. And for our purposes, I'm going to we want to call into these JavaScript libraries because they've already done a ton of heavy lifting for us. For I don't know, handling the authentication, maybe setting the right retry policies.
Right. So ideally, we're not going to reinvent the wheel here. We're going to use the existing library.
So you know what the best way to do this probably is, right, Hasan? Do you want to guess?
I would say probably via an extern.
Bingo. I like that solution too.
So if you want to throw that extern out there.
Let's just, I don't know. What do we call it? Cache.ts or something.
I see Elad is in chat trying to throw out some spoilers.
He's always 5 steps ahead,
I know. We're going to get there. We promise, Elad.
We promise. Well, this is great. So yeah, we're going to call out to the SDK, and actually it's going to be similar to the API we have here, but we also need to pass basically the cache name. I mean, there's a couple ways. You could also just pass it through an environment variable. Maybe that's an option. But this works.
I like this. It's nice and explicit.
Yeah, and yeah, maybe I'll just name it here. Okay, it's telling me the file doesn't exist. But let me finish defining these. I'll say set key value TTL. So it'll just be a number.
So basically, what's going on right now is we're defining this contract to this cache TypeScript file that we haven't created yet, so that we can make calls to the TypeScript code.
Yeah. So let's define this TypeScript file.
I also love that you can do these in TypeScript now. I know that's been a little while, but it's still good job, Mark.
Yeah, this is cool. And the really interesting thing as well is I think Mark added this as well. You'll get this TypeScript like typing file for free. The Wing compiler will basically generate it for you, and based on that, you can kind of like make sure like, okay, like if I try changing this type here, like it will get regenerated, and like I'll get an error in my TypeScript. So yeah, I think I might try to save some time by copying some code.
I'm not going
I
to
have
blame you.
saved. But we'll walk through it, you know. So I don't want anyone to get.
You just typed that. I watched you type it out. People don't realize you got the fastest fingers on the East.
I think that might be. You'd have to give that credit to Lad, but
I know. What?
At least when he's in New York, you know, or East Coast.
Yeah. Well, right now it's you. Well, if he's over here, then you got to settle for a second. So what's this doing?
Yeah. So what we're doing is we're first like at a high level we're defining these two functions, and you can see I've imported this typing file that we were just looking at, and I've said, okay, this function is going to have that type. So if I try like, so I'll actually get this information that cache name is a string, key is a string. And as far as like the business logic, what I'm doing is I'm importing the Go Momento library. We're creating a client. We're actually kind of like lazy. Maybe it's not totally lazy, but I'm creating a client as a global variable, and that way it can kind of be reused each time one of these methods are called.
Right.
And yeah, it's actually kind of interesting how they do it. Like there's a bunch of these different like configuration settings. Like I guess like one for if you're trying to just prototype on your laptop. But I saw the setting for Lambda, which is what we're probably going to be using. So it's like, hey, why not?
Interesting. Yeah.
And yeah, there's this like default time to live, but we're actually just going to. This won't be used because we're going to always provide the TTL, the time to live for the keys when we're calling this function.
Right. So our gets and sets here, they're making calls to the existing SDK, all sharing the same client. I did see that we had a really interesting auth token up there at the top, but I imagine you don't need to rotate that one.
Yeah, so here's like we were actually discussing this a little bit before the Wingly. Like there's a tricky challenge of like how do we grant permissions? So Wing, you know, one of the things we do is that we kind of like automatically grant you least privilege permissions, and part of that is by basically exposing an API that any resource can implement. So for example, this CacheTF class can implement this contract. And what the contract will do is like say, okay, these are the methods that are going to get called on the class. What permissions do you want to grant the host of the in-flight code? Like what permissions do you want to give to the Lambda or the container? And you can kind of, and so it's like a little inversion of control. But yeah, it's a little bit tricky because we would need to like generate these tokens that are more granular. And yeah, I think it's like a little bit too complicated to fit into this demo. So for now, we're going to just use this like this all-purpose token. Which is definitely not recommended in production. Like we will probably change this a little bit once we're publishing this library.
Right, we're under construction now. We're cutting some corners, but we're getting it working.
Yeah, and I think Olad actually mentioned this in the comments. Like, like we might have like a secret you need to provide or set of secrets.
Right, kind of similar. I think we've got a few other libs that where we need to provide secrets to get things working.
Yep. But it will, ensure that the secret, like you're fetching the secret at runtime, stuff like that, which is really nice for security reasons, because you can like audit the usage and whatnot.
Exactly. Yep.
But yeah, so we have these two methods, all kind of type checked in TypeScript through our IDE, and yeah, we can now just kind of call them. So let's say cache tf dot get key. I guess we'll return that. Oh, and we need, we need the name of the cache.
The name. Yeah.
Okay, and for set, yeah, that looks good enough.
Yeah, thanks.
Oh, okay. So the API takes a duration.
Duration.
So yeah, maybe we'll just default to 60 seconds. Actually, do we specify that? Yeah, let's.
I think we did.
I guess there's also
Default T2.
Over documenting never hurts.
Yeah, no one's getting harmed here in the production of the Swing lib.
Yes. And so this will just call set. And yeah, like the last piece here is like, I think if we actually try this, we will get an error because like this environment variable needs to get set somehow. Or it needs to get wired to the Lambda function or the container or other compute that's running this code. And so the convention right now we have in Wing is that you can write this method named onLift.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
And yeah, we might need to like, maybe we can like add like an interface so like it'll kind of tell you what the name of it is, and but you can really add this to any class and it will work, which is cool. And so this takes like an array of operations. In this case, we're just going to say, in general, let's add an environment variable to the host. Yeah, let's say Momento auth token. And I guess we need to kind of like pass this value. So let's say, or actually we can even just say, does this work? Okay. It does, it should already throw an error if that value isn't defined. Yeah, this looks a little funky, maybe. Maybe you can simplify it, but this should get us working. And maybe we can actually like look at the Terraform output to kind of see what's happening.
Yeah, sure.
So, okay, we've got some stuff. Let's go back to our example and add some, yeah, let's write a little test, right?
Yeah, test sounds like a good way to play with this.
So, yeah, let me just copy the code. Once you have this capability, it's like Copilot, but even faster, right?
Exactly. It looks like we need to bring detail. Yeah.
Yeah. So what I'm saying here is, let's set a value. Let's obtain that value from the cache to see. Okay, we should get it. And then we actually set a very short time to live of like 10 seconds. We're gonna sleep. For longer than that time, and then just long enough that it should get expired and removed from the cache.
Okay. This is a thorough test.
This is a real test. But maybe we should look at the Terraform. Actually,
Have you compiled? Oh, yeah, sorry. You just did.
Yeah. Yeah. So it does compile, but by default, we're not really. So you can write tests, but they're not going to be included in the output unless you're compiling like with the wing test command. I want to say maybe we should provide some like flag for this if you just want to like inspect it. I might maybe I'll like work.
Yeah, if you go
do
with the
this for now.
function, let's take a peek.
Yeah, let's just take a peek. We need cloud.
Oh man, we almost got through that whole example without bringing cloud.
That would have been wacky, very
It
wacky.
would.
But yeah, suppose you use this for some cloud function. Let's see. We're generating all of these resources like an IAM role, policy, lambda, etc. And then we have this auth token, and well, thank God some of it's cut off, but
I don't see anything.
but yeah, like we were saying, like this isn't really the right solution. Like I mean, if you have
Right.
like really tight security on your AWS accounts, maybe you're not too worried. But the best practice recommended by Momento and many others is to store these secrets in a secret manager.
Right. I think the fine grained tokens would definitely be like the long-term solution. I guess we could have also probably used like a cloud secret maybe, and then had the in-flights pull that value during runtime before like setting it for the client. But
Yeah,
we're making it work.
yeah, we're trying to get to this finish line as quickly as we can. Okay, so I'm gonna kind of undo and just like keep
Yeah,
this as a
Nathan's right.
test, and are we ready to try the test?
I'm so ready.
Yeah, we're creating two
Crossing
caches.
every appendage I've got. They're all crossed.
The second one isn't even used,
but we have two. That's the important part.
Yeah, and so we can kind of see the steps. It's I guess it's kind of nice. You can kind of twiddle your thumbs and
yeah, no, this is really cool. I don't think we've had like a real thorough walkthrough of like starting a winglib from finish or from start. Not finished, obviously, but like this potentially is a fix the token thing, and this could be published.
Yeah, totally. Okay, it's running the test. Oh, it passed.
Oh man, look at that. Oh, first try.
Yeah, so the value named value, very bad naming. It was printed, I guess from this line, and then yeah, we saw that's evicted because it was like nil afterwards. So
right, and we also have all those expectations there, right? So we would have seen like an exception throw.
Sorry, I'm not sure about that.
Oh well, there's my voice assistant.
yeah,
Cool, awesome, man. This is great stuff. I loved watching you do it. I love watching this get set up. I hope that we get this to the finish line because I can definitely see myself wanting to use it. Yeah. And I don't think we did too bad. 13 minutes over is not terrible, right?
Yeah. I mean, the next step would also be, writing.
Sim.
Exactly, the sim.
Yeah.
So like if you had to test every single application and like wait, what was this, 57 seconds? I mean,
right.
I might as well like take a shower at that point. Like,
it wouldn't be the Wing developer experience if we couldn't do this in the sim with super fast iteration cycles, right? Like,
yeah.
So definitely, that's a good call.
Yeah. So next step would be to write the sim implementation. Fortunately, yeah, I think we're out of time, but yeah, maybe we can try it another time. We'll see.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, the next time I host the Wingly, you're coming back and we're building the sim version. Okay.
Sounds good to me.
Awesome. Well, cool. Chris, thanks again so much. It was awesome hanging out with you and coding on this. Until next time.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.